She's not afraid of anybody.
When these women start fighting for men to be part of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, then I'll know that they really care about equality. Martha Burka, global angry chicks on testosterone overload. These are the bra-burning refugees from the 70s. The audience of men doesn't want to hear women call a game. They turn it off as fast as they turn off Dennis Miller. Do you think that anybody in the WNBA could beat anyone in the NBA?
Who was the lady from Southfield, Michigan?
An attorney.
An attorney, yes. Did she pass the bar?
Why do you have a right to be a member of every club just because you're a woman? You know, when these women start fighting for men to be part of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, then I'll know that they really care about equality. Race and gender are completely separate. They're completely different. And in fact, Augusta does have black members. And you know, Augusta actually was making waves to have women in the club. But these feminists engage in these terrorist tactics and they get this kind of backlash. Because I think most women can't take it when they're excluded. They don't realize that there's a dynamic that sometimes men want to be only with men. I mean, women have tried to invade the men's locker room. They're trying to become coaches in the NBA. They have already sued to become coaches of male basketball, high school basketball teams. They want to invade every area, and there's a backlash.
Is it the same to run a corporation as a woman and run a sports team?
Of course not. The fact is that this is not an area where equality is the supreme consideration. You think that Larry Brown had problems with Allen Iverson, or P.J. Carlesimo had problems with Latrell Sprewell. Just think what kind of problems they'll have when there's a woman coach. The problem is most of these people in the NBA themselves have been raised by women only. Their mothers have watched Oprah. They don't know how to be a man. They need a male role model, a male mentor, a male coach. There are a lot of things that go on in the locker room and off the field that are equally as important as winning and losing. And we have to get away from this desire to feminize and Oprahify every single segment of society. We have to let men be men.
These men did not look at me as a woman, but as someone who could help them to sharpen their game, to do drills.
You may think that that's how they looked at you, but that's
not
how they
became better players, and they still. How do you know how they looked at me? You weren't in their brains or no?
Because I understand the human psychology, and apparently you don't.
Debbie?
If baseball players can use steroids and O.J. and Lawrence Taylor can be in the Football Pro Hall of Fame, let Pete Rose back in and let him be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. 3 cheers for LeBron and people like Kobe Bryant who skipped college and let us, the consumers, pay for his job rather than the taxpayers funding him for a phony college education. If Ms. Burke wants to have a barbecue at the back of her house, why should I get to decide who the guests are? That's their house. That's their club. They paid for it. And the fact is that if she wants women in, why doesn't she have her own club? And frankly, you know, I've looked at her organization. Let's look at who some of the members of her organization are, since she's publicized who the members of Augusta are. I mean, these people do not represent women of America. She represents groups like Postpartum Support International, something called Gender Watchers. I have no idea what that is. And, you know, Global Angry Chicks on Testosterone Overload. I made that one up, but that's what it seems like this group is about. There are a lot of things in this country that are not gender neutral. We don't see men playing for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. We don't see men as waitresses at Hooters. And we don't see Ms. Burke fighting for the rights of women in 22 Arab countries around the world. Unfortunately, we saw in the New York Times that some of the men in the club are buckling. And I think that that's very unfortunate. These former bra burners of the 70s that Ms. Burke represents, unfortunately, have made men in America a bunch of wimps.
And now, here's Mark McEwen.
Want to weigh in on that?
With our first check of the weather.
Who was the lady from Southfield, Michigan?
An attorney.
An attorney, yes. Did she pass the bar?
In fact, a couple of weeks ago, a woman by the name of Patty Shea went to a Dodgers game, and all she wrote about was what she called the goodies and goodie factory of Shawn Green from the Dodgers, about her visit to the locker room. And this isn't about different rules. This is about the laws of nature. Women are not as good as men in any sport except maybe figure skating, and they couldn't outlast the men if they played them. So the dynamic you have is that the only women who are attractive succeed in marketing and endorsements. Okay, well, do you think that anybody in the WNBA could beat anyone in the NBA? They couldn't even beat my brother's high school basketball team. This is what the audience wants. That's the reason you have sexy cheerleaders in football on the NFL. Until they give up the dream that they're as good as men, this is the backlash. There's a dynamic in men's sports. Women want to date them and men want to be them. In women's sports, you just don't have that dynamic unless there's Anna Kournikova. That's why the WNBA is not succeeding. Nobody's going to those games.
Well,
and nobody's going to the Women's Soccer League's games either.
The Washington Mystics draw very well here in Washington.
A lot of lesbians, but not enough mainstream people.
Will you stop with the lesbians? It's like for a woman to be a good athlete, she has to be a lesbian. That's so ridiculous.
No, but that's who the fans are of the WNBA because none of them are good looking. Nobody cares. Nobody cares how these people do on the court. The fact is, sports is entertainment, and until people appreciate that it's entertainment, and people who are good-looking are the ones that draw crowds in entertainment, they're never going to get it.
But to be a good female athlete, you don't have to be lesbian.
That every right winger ends up attacking the gays. So we start out with
I didn't attack the gays. I just said you can't build a sports league on them. How many overhead layups can you watch before you get a headache in slow-mo?
Not everybody can be an anchor at CNN. CNN is exclusive. They pick who they like and who looks good. Are we going to have this women's club now fighting so that ugly women can be anchors? The fact is that not everybody can be a member of every
CNN does not discriminate based on categories of people.
I can't even respond to that. I don't know.
Ugly men.
Would it be out of line to propose to Debbie at this point? Is that? I tell you what, you know, that's the point.
If
the point
nominated,
is,
I will not serve. If elected, I will not run.
And I don't blame you.
Wait a minute. You're talking about curling again? Be careful, Debbie. That's a sport.
Well, yeah, it is a sport, and they play it down in South Florida before the early bird special, and there it's called shuffleboard. I was an agent for several Olympic divers in the 1996 Olympics, but the fact is that it has become bought and paid for by corporations. It's not about amateurs. In 1980, you contrast that, Mike Eruzione, who he and his team lit the Olympic cauldron in this Olympics, they were out of place, really, because they were amateurs in 1980 when they were playing against the professional Russians. And now they're all professionals. They're multimillionaire, for example, in hockey, multimillionaire brat NHL players. And who cares? Who wants to see that? One thing that the Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, has refused continuously to do is to memorialize those Israeli athletes that were murdered in cold blood by Palestinian terrorists. And yet at this Olympics, they spent millions of dollars for an Alvin Ailey choreographed memorial to FloJo, whose death had nothing to do with her sport or even with the Olympics. And I think it's about time for this stupid games, these boring games, to do something meaningful and help memorialize these athletes that were murdered because of their poor security. Her real name is Tiffany. It was changed to Jill for show business, and that's what this is.
I can't imagine being in a magazine and then going to try and interview an NFL player and you've got your pinup in his locker. I mean, how can you
Actually, I think it's every NFL's player's dream to be interviewed by her, and I think there's a lot of jealousy there. You see the same thing in women's sports where Anna Kournikova is the best looking and makes the most money, and all the better tennis players hate her. But this is about showbiz. The audiences want it. The guys who are the large part of the audience want it. They love this. Well, she doesn't do what John Madden does now anyway. I'm sorry, but she can't call a game. And there are very few women who do. And frankly, the audience of men doesn't want to hear women call a game. They'd turn it off as fast as they turn off Dennis Miller.
In fact, I filed a lawsuit some years ago on behalf of a man against a club called Women Only that was a health club.
What a great service
because
to
they
America,
wouldn't let me.
Well, Gloria, as a person who seems to constantly complain about a woman's right to her own body, these people have a right to their own bodies and their own private lives, and they can do what they want with their own money. This is a private club. It's simply not the case. They want publicity. These are the bra-burning refugees from the 70s.
You know, you are kind of hot. I like your eyes. I like your face.
Beautiful eyes.
You got nice lips.
She's great.
You are getting hotter with all your information.
You mean I wasn't hot to begin with?
Let's help.
We have 2 hours to kill if you'd like to ask my date about anything.
Are you going to go out with her or what?
I would date this broad. I mean, think about me bringing a smart chick around to some of their softball games.
This chick afraid of anybody.
You know a lot about sports, too, there, Schlussel?
Yeah.
She does. And you're from Detroit?
Yeah, in fact, Howard, I used to represent some Olympic athletes, and Howard had my diver on the show, Scott Doney.
Olympics aren't sports. We're talking about heterosexual sports.
The fact is, it is a private club, just like CBS, of which he was the CEO of, discriminates. For example, they discriminated against ugly women who were never anchors at CBS. Maybe he should start a club for that, and he can join in with Martha Burke. I think she'd fit into that category. You know, Ann, you were 17 once.
Horrible.
Did you drop your pants and tell people you can be?
Don't answer that.
You know what, Debbie? Let me assure you. Let me assure you, if I did, I would not be directing you to that website.
That is a distinction without a difference. The fact is, the NFL has broadcasts every single week, not 1 week out of the year, but every single weekend in the winter. And the fact is that the NFL only allows men to play football. They only allow women to cheerlead. Maybe you ought to be suing them too. Why don't you sue them? Why don't you sue Spelman College? He did not say that, but let's look at some of the things you've said. You've said things that actually a poll by Woman Trend and the polling company shows that 72% of the organizations that you claim to represent don't even agree with. They don't agree with your campaign. And not only that, but I have an article here that you wrote in Ms. Magazine where you believe in forced sterilization of men. And not only that, but you think that men should have to go before a committee before they have kids. That's worse than China.
I need to get back to this poll because this is Washington.
Because you can't defend your weird views.
Okay. I had to bring out the bell here, Debbie.
I'm not in Washington. I'm in Detroit, but we know what a dodge is. And a dodge is when you write an article like this that says that men need to go before a government board if they want to have kids. That's what she advocates, and she's trying to dodge her wacko, bizarro views. That's because nobody watches the game, Cynthia. In
And
Detroit,
why is that? Because they don't show us the
they're not
necessary
interested.
respect.
They want to see the
They're
best
not
game, and that's the
interested
men's game.
in your
NBA.
opinion.
They want to see Michael Jordan. They want to see Allen Iverson.
By that argument, no one would ever watch women play tennis, and we obviously watch women play tennis, so you don't have to.
Well, that's because there's
it's a
Anna
different game.
Kournikova, and she's
The what?
good looking.
Beat it.
I don't.
It's
and
not
she's
our
the
fault
highest,
that you're short.
highest paid.
That's not our fault.
No,
I like
it's
being
not
short.
your
I'm never
fault.
taller
I'm
than the
proud of
guys
you.
I go out with, Cynthia.
I'm proud of you.
Any other league that would have been this unsuccessful the first year would have closed
has
down
not
like the
been
ABL
unsuccessful.
did. Bill, you're wrong on this. There's a book called Pros and Cons, The Criminals That Play in the NFL. And that book found that 1 in 5 and maybe even 1 in 4 NFL players has been convicted of a serious crime. You don't find that in other industries that are legal. And the fact is that if you bet $1 on a game tomorrow in the NFL, you won't play in the Super Bowl. But see 2 people murdered, and you're in the Super Bowl. But Dick, the person that can really put the kibosh on this is Paul Tagliabue, the NFL commissioner. And recently he sent out an email to 600,000 NFL fans saying that he's sick and tired of the violence of the NFL athletes. He's going to have this new personal code of conduct. He's going to have some discipline. Where is the discipline? He's done nothing. He did fine Ray Lewis $250,000, but Ray Lewis may have taken, but he may have taken part in the stabbing of these 2 people. He hid his clothes. We don't know why. I think you can come to the pretty good conclusion. And the fact is that he's playing in the Super Bowl. And last year's Super Bowl had 13 criminals. It's time for this to stop. I mean, this is America's sport, and they've got to put some discipline in there.
Okay, I got to.